Hi, this is Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who've died recently who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. And we're going to open up tonight with our feature, Tony Gwynn, Mr. Padre, the greatest player in San Diego Padres history. I'd love to do a whole show on Tony Gwynn, but unfortunately he died prematurely. He died at the young age of 54. So unfortunately there's a lot of stuff that'll go left unsaid about Tony Gwynn, but what won't go unsaid about him is what a wonderful baseball player and what a wonderful guy he was. He was an outfielder and a contact hitter, and in that respect, he's the greatest hitter of our generation. In fact, the greatest hitter since Ted Williams, who also came from San Diego, by the way, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Tony Gwynn's lifetime batting average is .338, and the only higher average since 1939 is Ted Williams at .344. In addition to having the second highest batting average in the last 75 years, he hit .300 19 years in a row, and you're talking about Ty Cobb, Honus Wagner territory there. He was born in LA, his family moved to Long Beach, and he went to Long Beach Poly. He was a great athlete. He was a point guard, went to San Diego State, set their assist record, might have been able to play pro basketball, but he was a little small, but he was such a superb baseball player that he gravitated towards baseball. He had a superlative baseball career, as we'll hear about in a minute, and then he went back to San Diego State and became their baseball coach. In fact, my son played against him when his college team played against San Diego State near the end of Tony Gwynn's life. The two players he's most comparable to are Stan Musial, who was Mr. St. Louis, and Ted Williams, the face of the Red Sox franchise. He wasn't the power hitter that either of those guys was, but he was a better defensive player. He won a couple of Golden Gloves. He was a much better base runner. And whereas Stan Musial was a taciturn, quiet kind of guy, and Ted Williams could be a little obnoxious and abrasive to the fans, Tony Gwynn was friendly, always gave autographs, and was affable with the press. He was just a genuine guy. Here's Tim Kurgian to talk about his career.
I love playing. I love being out there. I love the challenge. And as long as that's there and physically I'm able to go out there, I'm going to keep playing.
On the famous night in 1999 at Fenway Park when the All-Stars spontaneously honored Ted Williams, the player that led the gathering at the mound was Tony Gwynn, which was fitting because, after Williams, no one understood or loved hitting more than Tony Gwynn.
As I remember walking on the field saying, this might be the greatest All-Star game I've been in, and I'm not even playing.
Gwynn finished with 3,141 hits. His career .338 average is the 17th highest all time, but of that group, only he, Williams, and Lou Gehrig played after 1938. Gwynn won 8 batting titles. Only Ty Cobb won more. Gwynn batted .300 for 19 straight seasons. Only Cobb had a longer streak. From 1993 to 97, Gwynn hit .368. Williams never hit that high for any 5-year period. And during that 5-year period, Gwynn hit an astonishing .335 when he had 2 strikes. During those 5 years, only Mike Piazza batted higher using all of their strikes. Gwynn's hits went everywhere. That's why he especially liked slashing singles between the third baseman and shortstop. That's why he had 5.5 written on the tongue of his spikes. In 20 years, Gwynn struck out only 434 times. Some players today reach that in 2.5 seasons. Gwynn never struck out more than 40 times in any season. 3 players did that in April 2013. In his career, Gwynn had 297 3-hit games and 1 3-strikeout game. Gwynn's bat control was legendary, partly because the last 10 years of his career he used a tiny bat, 33 inches, 30.5 ounces, which he needed because his hands were remarkably small. In 1994, Gwynn used only 1 bat for most of the season and hit .394, but the baseball strike denied him a shot at becoming the first .400 hitter since Williams in 1941. Gwynn called his bat 7 grains of pain, and for 20 years it caused pain for all pitchers. But Gwynn was so much more than a hitter. He won 5 Gold Gloves in right field. He stole 319 bases, including 56 in 1987. He's the only player in the last 80 years to hit .338 with 300 stolen bases. He was a great athlete. He played baseball and basketball for San Diego State. He was drafted in 1981 by the Clippers, even though he could never palm a basketball. But, like Williams, he was a magician with a bat. And yet, we'll remember Tony Gwynn in some ways for not being like Williams. Tony Gwynn tipped his cap. He had a special touch with the fans in his hometown San Diego, a place in which he played his entire career. He had respect for the media, and he loved to smile as much as he loved to hit.
You can't live on what you've done yesterday. You have to go out and prove yourself every day.
That season he hit .394, 4 more hits, and he would have hit .400. Here's his 3,000th hit of his career, and it's being called by Jerry Coleman, whose program we did a couple of months back.
Smith is ready. Gwynn waiting to pitch. There's a drive, right center field, base hitter, there it is! Oh, doctor! You can hang a star on that, baby! A star for the ages for Tony Gwynn, number 3,000. Well, the entire Padre ball club is heading to first base to congratulate Tony. The entire team is out there. And a very wise Reggie Sanders goes over and retrieves the ball from Mike Mordecai to give to Tony Gwynn. Number 3,000. Incredible. Not too many men, as Tony's mom is out there. His mother's out on the field. Here comes Alicia, his wife. Now, we're going to have about a 10-minute delay here because of the moment in Major League Baseball history.
Well, as long as we're talking about announcers, a final tribute to Tony Gwynn from another announcer, Vin Scully.
Tony Gwynn, the heart and soul of the San Diego Padres, and for that matter, the city of San Diego, passed away today at the early age of 54. You could say a lot of things about Tony Gwynn, all the numbers, 8-time batting champion. Best year, he had .394. That's when people were comparing him to Ted Williams. 16 times in his 20 years, he was an all-star. And it goes on and on and on. But more than that, he was a sweetheart of the guy. He was also family. I mean, after all, his brother Chris played for the Dodgers, and his son Tony Jr. played for the Dodgers. But with all the numbers and all the plaudits given to Tony Gwynn, the thing I would remember the most, his smile. There are those who smile and get rid of it right away. There are those who smile and then it kind of drips off their face. And then there are those rare ones who will smile and it will just stay in the air and make you feel better. And that was Tony Gwynn. I used to love to tease him. We knew he was a brilliant hitter. But I would say to him, Tony, I've been giving it a lot of thought. You ought to learn to bunt. And he would start laughing, and his whole body would shake. Tears would fill his eyes, and I would always leave him feeling a lot better than before I had met him that night. Tony Gwynn, one of the really special people. Great player, but more than that, a wonderful human being.
I want to segue briefly. Tim Kurgian mentioned that Tony Gwynn only struck out 3 times in a game once in his career, and the guy who struck him out was Bob Welch. Bob Welch also died recently at the age of 57. He was a great fastballer. He came out of Hazel Park High, Ferndale, Michigan, went to Eastern Michigan, and he's best known as the fastballer who struck out Reggie Jackson in a 5-minute at bat in Game 2 of the 1978 World Series.
Simmons to go to 3-2, and it swings to the Yankees, and Jackson makes the give way. Dent, second, Blair at first, 2 outs. There they go, struck him out, ball game is over. Bob Welch, a tremendous pitching performance. Listen to the crowd.
Welch had a promising career, but he had trouble with alcohol. But in 1990, after he'd been traded to the Oakland A's, he went 27-6 and won the Cy Young Award. 27 wins is as many as any pitcher has won since Denny McLain in 1968. He overcame his alcohol problem, pitched 17 years in the major leagues, and had a successful career as a coach in both college and the pros. We're going to close tonight with Casey Kasem, who died at the age of 82. Nice Lebanese boy born in Detroit. He actually wasn't born too far from Bob Welch. When he grew up, he wanted to play for the Tigers, but he didn't have the skills. But he did have the skills to become a disc jockey. He was a DJ for the armed forces during the Korean War. And then he did some boss jock stuff, primarily on the West Coast in the 1960s. But he made his fame when he abandoned the boss jock format and went to a more straight-laced format for American Top 40, the show he hosted from 1970 until 2009, where he was not only the disc jockey announcing the records, but the resident music historian. You're CNN on Casey Kasem.
These are radio's hottest hits by music's hottest stars.
He's the legendary DJ with that recognizable voice that counted down our favorite songs for decades. Casey Kasem, born in Detroit, Michigan, never intended to spin records as a career.
Didn't want to be a disc jockey. I wanted to be a baseball player and an actor, but not a disc jockey.
But everywhere he turned, there was a radio. From starting his own high school sports radio show to working for Armed Forces Radio while serving in Korea. But Kasem's big break came after a series of DJ jobs across the U.S. On July 4th, 1970, American Top 40 was launched, with Kasem pioneering the countdown format. What Dick Clark was to television pop music, Kasem was to radio. Also delivering thousands of those special dedications to millions of listeners.
A long-distance dedication from Patty to Roger.
He even helped bring cartoon characters to life, most famously as the voice of Shaggy on Scooby-Doo.
Here it comes, an aerial attack!
In the 80s, his hit radio show became a spin-off television series, America's Top 10. After 39 years, Kasem's fans were shocked when he announced his retirement and handed over his microphone to Ryan Seacrest.
I'm Casey Kasem, counting down the hottest songs in the land.
Here he talks about getting that Shaggy gig for Scooby-Doo.
The character I wanted to do was Fred, and so they said, no, we'd like you to read the other character, Shaggy. I said, oh, okay, well, what is it you want? And he said, come up with something, and what I came up with was, Scoobo, buddy, old friend, old pal, it's me, your friend Shaggy.
Now that's cool, Unc.
They called me back 3 times, and the 3rd time they saw what they liked, and so they hired me.
Well, gang, that wraps up another mystery.
Of course, we have to play a little bit from a sign-off American Top 40 show.
I'm Casey Kasem. Well, now we're up to the #1 song in the land, and our look back at 4 amazing decades, counting them down. The countdown began on the 4th of July, 1970. It was an idea that my partner Don Bastani and I came up with. Our first show took more than 18 hours to record, and at first we only had 7 stations. But Don and I believed, and so did a growing number of listeners. Back then, there were no long-distance dedications on the show. That didn't come along until 1978, when Matt Wilson located one in the mail, and Matt's been with us ever since. To date, we've read more than 3,000 of your dedications. Over the years, musical trends have come and gone, from disco to new wave, from punk to hip-hop, from bubblegum to rock. We've been there, counting them down. It's been a great 39 years, and it's really been an honor for me. But we're not finished yet. Our first #1 back in 1970 was Mama Told Me Not to Come by 3 Dog Night, and we've got 1 more song to go. The #1 song in the USA for a 3rd week is Second Chance by Shinedown. I'd like to share with you something I've learned over the years. Success doesn't happen in a vacuum. You're only as good as the people you work with and the people you work for. I've been lucky. I've worked for and with the very best. I'm Casey Kasem. Now, one more time, the words I've ended my show with since 1970. Keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars.
I'm going to close on that note. I want to thank my producer, Sid Tepps, and our closing song will be that first song in the American Top 40 #1 on July 4th, 1970. It was written by Randy Newman, Mama Told Me Not to Come. There have been a couple of great versions. He wrote it for Eric Burden. He did a good version. Tom Jones did a great version. Here's Randy Newman singing his own song.
We have whiskey with your water, sugar with your tea. What are these crazy questions that they're asking of me? This is the wildest party that they ever could be. No, don't turn on the light, cause I don't want to see. Mama told me not to come. Mama told me not to come. Mama said that ain't no way to have fun.
But here's the version Casey played in July of 1970, and it's the best version by 3 Dog Night.
Want some whiskey in your water, sugar in your tea. What's all these crazy questions they're asking me? This is the craziest party that could ever be. Don't turn on the lights, cause I don't want to see. Mama told me not to come.